Hello and welcome to the Grit Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. This is your host, Bryce Moose. Joining me today is my new co-host, Mr. Austin Rains. Austin, how are we doing?
Doing really well. Thank you so much for having me. Honored to be kind of in this co-chair now. I
Yeah,
know there's been some controversy just kind of around the whole situation, and you've had previous partners in the past who were really talented people, but just from a commitment standpoint, kind of lack kind of in that department. So I'm happy to be here.
yeah. I think our good friend Jacob just has trouble with priority sometimes, and
Yeah,
wants to tell me a newborn is more important than a podcast. So be it. And
I
with
don't
that,
see it. I don't see it.
yeah, you can always have another. Just can't have another
What's the
podcast.
newborn? The newborn's been here what? A couple days? How long has
Yeah,
this league been here?
that's what I mean. We've known each other for years, and I'm already getting passed over for a six day old.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It
Um,
reminds me of the Silos 2.0.
man, that wasn't that long ago. Amazing what all
No,
can change.
no, no.
Yeah. All right. Well, wanted to hop on here with Austin today and discuss a couple things at the end of the season, just some overall NFL takes, as well as jump into some draft talk, see if Austin has any hot takes, maybe some early draft stuff or some stuff that he wants to see happen. Um, I know 2 weeks ago I came on here and gave kind of my initial reviews on some players. I've kind of changed my tune on a couple guys after digging into some more film and everything. But I'm excited to get into it. And yeah, Austin, any final words before we get this thing going?
Um, I think I'd be like remiss if I didn't mention and give Jonah a shout out. Just he's the league champion, and Mongers came up short this year. I think we are really set up well for next year, and I'm excited. I'm excited to be back in that position. But the league is changing a lot this
Yeah.
year. We made probably the biggest, well, since Dynasty, the biggest change we've made. So yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Jonah. Congrats. I don't know if his team is set up. I don't know if it has the legs that maybe another team, a couple other teams might have, but he won it. He was the best team last year. That's it. It was cool to see that rarely happens. It seems like so.
Yeah, I will say Jonah did a really good job of building a team out that was all guys that were kind of undervalued in a sense from maybe, look, not a lot of guys on this team are the flashy 24-year-old receiver that everybody wants. It's just a lot of guys who go out there consistent, has a, really deep bench he could rely on every week. And it just was able to always have somebody to play. Overcame some injuries too. He was just one of the best teams, if not the best team from start to finish all last year. So shout out to him. And that was kind of where I was going to begin was obviously after coming up second. I know you've been, to the finals 3 straight years. Is that right? To the championship game 3 straight years?
Every
Every year in
Not to
Dynasty.
be braggy, every year in Dynasty, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it must be nice to have Amon Ra and Puka and Justin
Yeah.
Jefferson. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the way everything ended last year, were you disappointed? Were you surprised, or was it more of a my team is really good, but we just didn't have enough?
Um, I mean, if I could have done last year over, I don't think I would have done too much differently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tight end is just like that was the biggest glaring hole on my team, and I kind of thought I could get over it, and just like I
Yeah,
didn't need a tight end, and I think Kittle ended up kind of being a huge difference maker, and
yeah,
I don't know. So like I don't have huge regrets because there's not that many guys I would have really wanted to trade for long term. If I want to go out and win net like last year, I guess I could have done
right.
that. But like we can go look at this, but like Travis Kelsey was tight end 5 last year, and he was like, I mean, you were pissed most weeks with him. Just felt like he kept underperforming, right? So
Yeah,
tight end 5. So I don't know. Like it's just a weird position, and I feel like that's the one that kind of screwed me. And Jonah had tight end 1, and also had a bunch of difference makers and a bunch of playmakers on his team, and that kind of was the difference, uh,
yeah. I mean,
or
the
a
nature of the
difference,
tight end
not the
position last
difference,
year
but
was
yeah.
Brock Bowers was obviously insane, but everybody else, um, oh, did I
You're
disconnect here?
lagging.
Oh
No,
God.
there you are. You're back.
Okay. Um, I was gonna say, yeah, Brock Bowers was really a difference maker last year.
Hmm.
Laporta disappointed. Um, like you said, Kelsey disappointed, and yeah, Kittle was great down the stretch, but he wasn't like, this force from start to finish last year either. The nature of the position is really if you could just time up the weeks where you really need a big tight end performance,
Yeah.
that's awesome. But there's also something to be said for consistency and just a guy who can get you 10 to 15 every week
Yeah.
with the upside of a touchdown. And I know with Dalton Kincaid for you, we were expecting more. I was expecting more personally. And really somebody who just never seemed to put it together all last year. Always
Yeah.
felt like there was just something missing. And with how good Josh and that Bills offense was, just he never really got it going.
What's the deal? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense really. Yeah, so I lost by 13 points in the championship, and Kittle outscored Kincaid by 16. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. Like I had guys that performed well and did their thing like they do every week. I have those guys on my team, but I also have like a pretty glaring, weakness that kind of has to be addressed. And I mean, we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, I think it's cool that Jonah won. I respect that win because, and I don't want to throw shade at some other people here or anything like that, but I'm going to. Jonah, like, it felt meticulously like a designed team that he had to work
Hmm.
for to get.
Yeah.
He didn't luck into trades, and he didn't luck into certain people making like really dumb decisions and giving away their whole future team. Um, so
Right.
the future of our league is going to be really interesting. I'm as invested as ever, but like, I mean, Jordan, for example, has lucked into trade after trade.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say luck. I mean, he's the one being involved in right place, right time. But Jonah didn't really have those. So it'll be interesting if that's going to like catch up to him because I do like I've lucked into Puka and a couple guys like that, and that's a part of this. Is you have to kind of have some luck as well.
Yeah, I mean, part of dynasty is you have these deep benches, you have these late round picks just to take shots on guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might miss nine, but maybe that 10th one is a hit, or at least somebody who you can start. I mean, even for my team, like I traded for Bucky Irving as like a toss in kind of in the offseason after the rookie draft. And like, I mean, I was hoping that, maybe he could get some spot starts if Rashad White was hurt or something. Turns out, I mean, he's like locked in dynasty RB6, I think, right now on keep trade cut. And really set up to be the Bucks kind of lead rusher this year. And I was never expecting that. I mean, he was a fourth round pick. So it can always happen. You can always find these guys every year, every single season, even if you're not excited about the draft class or not excited about maybe where your picks are in the draft. Just keep swinging. Like you never
Yeah.
know what you can hit on. But yeah, Jonah, I was going to say, I mean, he really tore it down. I mean, this is the guy who had that number one overall pick with during the Bijan year. Um, and, I made the trade for Bijan. He kind of took that as a way to use the first to go get players and get better quicker rather than do the full kind of reset. But,
Hmm.
he still came from that last spot and shows you how you can turn it around as long as you have assets and you're willing to make some moves, which is why it's really disappointing to see some of the people in the league just accept defeat year after year rather than
Yeah.
try at least.
Yeah.
Um, Try to tear it down or try to get a 55% win on a
Hmm.
50-50 trade,
Yeah.
little wins here and there can really go a long way. So yeah, shout out to Jonah
It
for sure.
we the theme of the off season has been like, is the league dead? Is it broken? And in my opinion, like I think we've got 7 or 8 guys who are just like never really going to quit the league,
Mm-hmm.
right? um 7, 8, 9 probably. There's like two really in particular that, like, if they just showed a little more investment like in season,
Yep.
picking up guys that like, like I picked up Jalen Coker,
I
for
literally
example,
have this written
right?
down in
Like
my notes.
I,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm once again, I'm sure other people have done the same. I just know myself, like what I've done. So like,
Yep.
that's just Jalen Coker would be starting on Xander's team, right? Like
Yep.
we know he spends time on his phone. He literally was arguing with Meta the other day. He was debating Meta the other
Mm-hmm.
night.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got time. Like it's not like he asked Meta like what the best religion is or whatever. Like he's got the time is there. He's just not putting it towards this, which is a little frustrating because the situation's bad, and he's actively trying to make it worse through not participating as much as he should be.
Well, and the reason I wrote that down is like those are the kind of little moves that maybe Jalen Coker never starts for your team, but in
Right.
case worst case scenario happens, at least you have another playable guy. Plus, he's a rookie, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Leggett didn't show me that much more than Jalen Coker, if anything at all. So who knows? Like maybe Jalen Coker's role continues to increase. That was a guy who you got for Fab, who anybody could have picked up all offseason. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, we did the transition to Superflex, and I've been on the waiver wire. I picked up Joe Milton. Like, I'm just grabbing guys.
Yeah.
Is Joe Milton like the fourth most valuable guy in Xander's roster? Probably. Yeah, he would
Okay.
be.
Gun to your head. Would you rather have Jalen Coker or Jacoby Myers right now?
Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers right now.
By
Yeah.
how much?
Um,
No, Jacoby Myers was like what, a top 25 wide receiver last year. I'm
thousand
giving him
yards.
shit. So
No,
yeah,
no,
but
no, for sure. And that's the entire point is Jacoby Myers like timeline it's gonna run out here pretty quickly. And at least
yeah.
Jalen Cook, like we don't know. Like I picked up Jordan Whittington last season, like off waivers. I mean, nobody
Mm-hmm.
had him. Like um these guys are out there, and if you took 10 minutes to just scroll the waiver wire, you might say, oh, maybe I don't need to roster Van Jefferson in 2025. I can drop him. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like no
Yeah.
one's grabbing him. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I just wish the effort and the actual it's really not that much effort. Like it's just
No.
pay attention for 10 minutes a day for a week or two.
Yeah.
You'll get the
One
pulse
less
of it.
Daily
But
Wire article. That's all we're asking, Xander. One less a
yeah,
week, and I think you'll be okay.
I mean Xander's played 25,000 games of Clash Royale in his life. I
Yeah.
think he's got time for yeah. I think he's got time.
Yeah.
Zach, another one too. I sent Zach a
Zach. Yeah.
Jared Goff.
Yeah.
Well, I sent him a
Yeah.
Jared Goff trade.
Zach had 47 days on Minecraft last year,
I believe it. I believe it.
and he can't commit, I don't know, 5 minutes a week to this league. It's just interesting.
Yeah, and you can scroll over at the if you go to the previous leagues on Sleeper, you can see
Yeah.
like total transactions throughout the year. I mean, Alec didn't spend a single dollar of fab. Like, guys, just take a look at it occasionally. I know you're laying in bed on your phone late at night. Just scroll the waiver wire. You never know. You might see something. It's like, oh look, the
Yeah.
year before I grabbed Jalen Warren in a Starbucks parking lot. Like I remember it because
Yeah.
Zach immediately messaged Jalen Warren. Is that the guy? Well, yeah, he kind of ended up being the guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, two guys on my team that I got directly. I know Jalen Warren's not currently on my team, but two guys directly on my team became top 100 best ball picks, like redraft picks and everything, who were dynasty free agents, right? So if you say, well, there's nobody available, I'm telling you there is. You just got to take a look. But yeah,
At least try. You're gonna miss, but like at least try, right?
yeah, and while we're here talking about Zach for a second, maybe this is a good time to transition. JJ McCarthy, who goes from a kind of a throw in a trade with the transition now to Superflex. We'll see what happens with Sam Darnold. Could be looking at the week one starter in Minnesota, and Zach's going to have a 22-year-old, very high valued quarterback. And he has Jared Goff. So it's not over, right? Like you can definitely.
No, not at all.
No, and he's going to have a bunch of picks coming up here. I think he's got 4 second rounders this year. So it can turn around quickly. I just wish the effort to maybe speed that up a little and stop letting the best teams or the most active managers just get everybody would really go a long way. So
yeah, totally agree. Yeah. So if we're going to transition to, talking about JJ McCarthy, I think, I don't know if I've really heard your thoughts totally. I mean, you kind of talked about a little bit about it last time, but just on the transition to the new format and like,
yeah,
how, like, you sent me like one note to think about. And the one thing that comes to mind is just how valuable these young quarterbacks are.
yeah,
Like it's insane how like, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, like just how valuable
yep.
they have now become.
Yeah. So the real push and pull of the transition here is what do we really value quarterbacks at? How quick does the market respond to the true
Yep.
value of these guys? So, for instance, right, and I know Josh Allen, I think as a rookie was like 6-11 with the Bills. He was good, but wasn't like a fantasy dominator. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, but you saw the
Hmm.
potential. I think year two was the year it was like, oh my gosh, like this guy's actually insane. And then year three was like, okay, he's a top three fantasy quarterback. Obviously, we know what he is now. Jaden Daniels just broke a ton of records as a rookie. And I know he was a 23-year-old rookie, but I mean, you got to think at least 10 years as a starting NFL quarterback, like already locked in basically at this point.
Yeah.
Um, with an NFC Conference Championship game appearance as a rookie, which is,
Unheard
close
of.
to unheard of. Yeah. Um, the true value of these guys is now at a level where you have to really think about what kind of direction your team is in. And the whole point of the transition here was to create value for another position group in our league, right? The receiver market is really what dominated the trade talks. And other than the receivers,
Hmm.
it was really like the Bijans of the world, the young running back, A Chain Bijan, like the young running back who clearly has like a lot of years left. But even like before this, like the Alvin Kamaras of the world, the James Connors, you could go get them anytime you wanted. Throw somebody a late first, they'd give it to you. But um, now position players will go down in value slightly. The
Yeah.
top guys will stay the top guys. However, more guys should now be attainable for third round picks. For instance, like a Jacoby Myers, for instance, like I don't know, is a last pick of the second round get you Jacoby Myers? I'd think so, right? Um, with the way that the value is distributed, if you have like an excess quarterback, you can like cash that in basically at any point for a ton of picks, starters,
Yeah.
whatever. Um, it's going to be really easy for people to do quarterback for quarterback trade. So, like for instance, right? I know Bo Nix is, uh, I don't know, he's probably QB 10 or something in Dynasty. But if I was to offer you, and let's say for instance that you have not Josh, but let's say Jalen Hurts, okay, and I said, all right, I'll give you Bo Nix in the fifth pick for Jalen Hurts. Maybe you accept it, maybe you don't. But it
Right.
at least starts the conversation of like, okay, well, is that fifth pick enough to upgrade at quarterback?
Hmm.
Um, the real question is when do we see the first cross positional trade? So like, if you were to sit here and say, okay, I want to have Josh Allen and Lamar, and I'm going to give you Justin Jefferson and something else for Lamar Jackson. So the first time we see that cross positional trade, I think is going to be a big eye opener for the league because it's going to be a haul. I was talking with Blake about a Lamar deal, and this was including Bo Nix. We didn't end up reaching terms here, but we were close. I had the offer in my inbox. I
Yeah.
just couldn't get myself to do it. But quarterback for quarterback and then stuff thrown in, right? So it was Bo Nix basically plus two first rounders plus something else to go get Lamar,
Hmm.
which I mean, back-to-back MVP, right? Like I know I understand his value, and you're going to need two quarterbacks if you really want to win.
Hmm.
Two, I shouldn't say two high-level scorers, but two guys you
Well,
can start every week consistently.
I think that's. I don't know. I think you might need more than that.
Right. Well, yes, and backup quarterbacks value is now goes from unownable to like more valuable than maybe your seventh receiver, like
Hmm.
Pop Douglas or Gardner Minshew, right? Like it's
Yeah.
it's not even a question. Um, anybody who can step in and start some, like Joe Flacco, right? Like the Joe Flacco starts last year. Um, even if you're a team with an injured quarterback, say like
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson gets benched and I don't have a third quarterback, right? I might trade for Joe Flacco, and it might take me like a second rounder to go get him, even if it's for 5 or 6 weeks.
Jameis Winston's now worth a first.
That's what I mean. Is like
Yeah.
if you're a quarterback excess heavy team, it's going to be a lot easier to trade these guys. And if you want to move a quarterback, every team in the league should be interested. Like if somebody says, I want to move Jared Goff, everybody should be sending offers.
Yeah. You should
This,
listen.
yeah, because you can never have too many because you can always sell them. There's always going to be a market for a quarterback. It's really hard to find two quarterbacks who you can count on every week.
Totally. And there's also the like I mean we know this is going to happen, but the injuries and things like that, where like
Oh yeah,
I do think quarterback is now. I mean, there were like very few quarterback related trades, or they'd be more throw-ins than anything
it
into
was it was
the
like
meat.
yeah, it was
It's like the
upgrades.
side dish,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
of a trade. And now like it's going to be the meat and potatoes
yep.
of most of the trades, which is going to be interesting. And I just think like I'm going to keep using my team just because I know it. But like the question I have to answer is Trevor Lawrence a good enough QB2, consistent enough, going to stay healthy to help to win a championship? That's like my burning question, right? And I'm sure other teams are in that same position. Like, is I don't know, is a latter half of a top 20 QB enough,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's
I
gonna
don't
be
know.
really hard to get your hands on two QB1s, and I know
Mm-hmm.
Jonah's kind of set up because he has Dak on IR. Like, of course, Jonah is. It's actually what's funny is as much as we've screwed Jonah over the years with some of these transitions, this one actually really helps him.
Yeah.
But besides the point, like Will has CJ Stroud, he has Stafford, and I think he has Sam Darnold. I want to say
Mm-hmm. No, he's
maybe
got he's
oh,
got
and Jaden
four.
Daniels and Jay. I'm
Yeah,
burying
and
the
Jaden
lead.
Daniels.
Yeah, I'm
No,
burying
so
the lead
like
here.
it's Jaden Daniels and Stroud for the rest of eternity for the next 10 years.
Or
And
or do we want to
yeah,
move? And I've texted him twice about Stroud and get left on red. But if he wants to
yeah.
move Stroud, okay, I need a quarterback too, or I need
Mm-hmm.
a guy to go with Bo Nix at least for right now. And
Yeah.
then that's going to come into play with the rookie drafts as well. And I know that we're going to get there, but Shadur and Cam Ward this year coming out, where do they go in the rookie drafts? How high is too high? And I know this isn't a
Yeah.
great quarterback class, is what everybody
Yeah.
wants to tell me, but these guys still might go first and third in the draft.
Our
So
draft or the real draft?
real draft.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then in our draft, if you're a quarterback needy team at one, I can't tell you not to take somebody. Although I will say, I think GT, even in Superflex leagues, is the 101.
Yeah.
I've changed my
I do
tune on
too.
him. I've changed my tune
Yeah.
on him a little bit as I've watched some more stuff. But yeah, we'll get there. And look, this is still a learning process for a lot of us when it comes to Superflex. And I think the people who are willing to take risks will probably get paid off more. Everybody knows how to play Dynasty in our league now. You know how to not screw yourself for the next 10 years, right? You're not going to see somebody out here like you're not going to go and trade Josh Allen for a first round pick. Like it's going to take the fucking boat if you want,
Mm-hmm.
if somebody wants Josh Allen. It's going to take
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels two firsts plus like, something else probably, I would think. Um, but that trade is now available. Like if somebody wants to overpay you, you're going to listen because hey, you want to win the league. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the whole point of this is to add the best part about going to dynasties it gives or superflex is it gives these guys additional value, right? Like I offered Zach
Yeah.
105 for Jared Goff. I need a starting quarterback. 105. Maybe I'm getting Cam Ward there. Maybe I'm getting Shadur. I don't know. I can't really trust Anthony Richardson right now. So it's like, okay, well, I can get Jared Goff.
You'd rather
What
have the proven commodity.
Well, because at this point, it's like he's got 4 years left on his deal. The Lions score a
Yeah.
bunch of points. I can count on him every week. He never misses games. Yeah, I mean, I'll take him.
Mm-hmm.
So I like my running backs and receivers enough. I just need the quarterback consistent production. So it's definitely going to be it's
Yeah.
going to be a wait and see with a lot of this stuff. I just want to see people more willing to make offers. I think everyone's waiting for that first move to go down before attacking it themselves.
Mm-hmm. I think ultimately it's like I personally don't know how I feel about it for my team, but I think overall for the league, I think it helps a lot because it does feel like a just it equals the playing field a good bit because I don't think any team is genuinely like getting screwed here,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I do think the teams that were at the bottom of the totem pole, it like actually kind of helps the most outside of like Jonah and stuff like that. But
It
like
helps
the
Xander a lot.
Will, it
Yeah.
helps Xander. It helps like Grant. If Bryce Young turns out to be like a top 15 quarterback,
Even a
Grant,
playable top 24
yeah,
quarterback. Yeah.
Grant's now in like an okay spot where at least he can build around those two guys because they're
Yep.
what like combined 44 years old or 46 years old, him
Yeah.
and Drake May.
And
So,
I will say
yeah,
that while we're on Grant too, he's also got Justin Fields and Daniel Jones just rostered, who were
yeah,
essentially zeros, right? And now it's like, well, shit, if Justin, we'll get into this. Actually, remind me of my Justin Fields point because I want to bring this
okay,
up later.
okay,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, a lot of the teams at the bottom definitely got, I think a boost in some sense. I'm actually
hmm
surprised that none of these teams on the bottom have said, okay, well, Xander knows, like, I'm not winning the championship this year. I can get a first and something on top for Baker. Let me go move Baker and let me start this
hmm
restart of like actually getting some people on my team.
yeah.
Reset the clock a little bit. Like by the time Xander competes, Baker will be like what 34, 35 years old. So I don't know. I'm just kind of surprised I haven't seen more moves. I think.
Well, one, I do think it's just kind of the dead time, and that's okay. I also
Mhm.
think like there is some, I don't know, maybe some confusion around like
What the
market
values are?
value
Yeah,
and how to go from there and what people want for what and how much less valuable are position players and how much more valuable quarterbacks are. And I don't know if anyone wants to get like shit on for making the wrong decision
yeah,
or undervaluing a certain position or overvaluing something else. So I don't know. I think once we get closer to the season, once we get closer to the draft, like things are going to pick up. And um, I think I'll transition the conversation to this and kind of looking at the draft. I think for the 2025 season, this is kind of my take. I don't think Cam Ward or Shadir are going to be guys that can help you win a championship this year. Um, like long term as prospects, maybe like especially I think Cam Ward could like develop into that if he goes to the right fit. But like
yeah,
for this year, I think the quarterbacks that are already in the league are the only ones that can help you win this year.
yeah,
So it's kind of like it is what it is. That's what we got. I don't like. I'm not big on either of those two guys. Um, I don't like. I love Jackson Dart, but I also like don't love him as an NFL quarterback. So
yeah,
um, it is my point with that is what we currently have is what it is.
yeah. And you got to think too. There's a lot of guys in that kind of middle tier. So outside of the top, we know that you're going to start every single week quarterbacks. It probably
Mm-hmm.
ends after like I think Mahomes is like QB 7 this year, maybe QB 8. Like Dak, Kyler, again Bo Nix. After that kind of range, even where Stroud was this past year, Stroud like wasn't a great fantasy QB. There's so many
Yeah.
guys in that range. And if you're on the bottom half of that range, that's the Derek Carrs, the Bryce Youngs, the Drake
Yeah.
May, at least last year Drake May. Um, can Shadur or Cam Ward match that tier? I think it's possible. Are they going to exceed that tier? I think that is like really unlikely. And I'm
Same.
with you. I have really, really soured. I think on both of these guys. I was higher on Cam Ward initially. Man, I watched some more stuff on him, and he doesn't play like an NFL quarterback at all. So you're really asking somebody to adjust quickly, and he could be on like the Giants or the Titans, and it's just like that infrastructure is not really there for him
Yeah.
to learn quickly. I'm not going to discount him because I think he's got all the talent in the world, but like, man, if he steps into the Titans and has to hand to Tajay Spears and throw to 32-year-old Calvin Ridley, like
Yeah. It's
I
not
don't
good.
know. Yeah.
It's not good. No. I guess the Giants have like I mean that O line is tough, but like at least they have some weapons, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
I think that's his ideal landing spot if we're talking about a top five team.
Yeah.
Um, but man, yeah, it's just it's tough. Like I think what made Caleb Williams such a I mean, beyond him just being Caleb Williams, is like that Bears team was ready, like, or at least they felt ready
Mm-hmm.
with just the
Yeah. The skill
the weapons
positions.
around them,
Yeah.
and then even the Commanders too. Like they had guys, and
Yep.
obviously Jaden Daniels did something that few rookies do, where they immediately start elevating the people around them. Which I just don't. None of these guys in this draft are going to do that this year. I'm like
No.
very confident in that. Maybe you can clip this in a year from now and I'll get shit on, but like I feel very strongly about that.
Yeah. And going back to my Justin Fields point, I want to and say this real quick. There's a lot of quarterback needy teams. There's about 25 teams that we know who their starter is going to be,
Yeah.
but Raiders, Titans, Giants. And you keep going down the list. I mean, there's a bunch like the Saints. Like I don't know what the Saints are going to do. There's about 5 or 6 teams, and there's just not that many quarterbacks available, right? So like outside of your locked in starters, you're looking at the Justin Fields, the Daniel Jones, the Gardner
Hmm.
Minshew, Sam Darnold, Cam Ward, Shadur. If somebody takes Jackson Dart in the first round, he's going to start week 1, whether they bring competition in or not. I mean, maybe it's like Justin Fields and Jackson Dart battling out the Steelers. That was the other team I
Yeah.
was looking for.
Yeah.
Um, they said they're not bringing Russell Wilson back, right? Does Russell
Hmm.
Wilson retire? Does he go start somewhere else now? There's gonna be a lot of turnover, and I think that like this would be a great year to have a great quarterback class, but we just don't have a great
We
quarterback
don't
class.
we don't have it. No, not
And
at
so,
all.
yep, and we saw some good stuff from Michael Penix, some really bad stuff from Michael Penix. We haven't seen a thing from JJ McCarthy, and this guy's thrown, I don't know, 150 passes in like at 3 seasons.
Hmm.
I mean, because he sat out all last year after like barely playing it all at Michigan or barely throwing the ball at Michigan.
Yeah, I think the point to me here is that the quarterbacks that are already in the league are much more interesting
Mm-hmm.
than the quarterbacks coming out in this draft. And by that, I mean, what's going to happen to Sam Darnold? What's going to happen to Russell Wilson? What's going to happen to Justin Fields? What's going to happen to Derek Carr? Um, how does Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, how does year 3 Drake May, how do all these guys look in their next year?
Yeah,
I
did the
think
Colts
that is
bring
much more
competition in for
interesting.
Anthony Richardson?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what are they going to do there? So like those, especially like Russell Wilson, Sam Darnold, like what is going to happen to those guys? Like Sam Darnold was QB 8 this year,
Mm-hmm.
like, and he may not be a
He
starter
w-
next year.
he will start. Somebody is going to pay him, but they're going to have to give him some contract that it's like
Yeah,
squeamish. But somebody's going to do it, and whether it's just to bring competition or not, but like, is Sam Darnold an upgrade over what the Steelers did at quarterback last year? I think probably, right? You know,
yeah, yeah.
maybe they
But
want to go Jackson Dart and just finally restart the clock here.
yeah, I was looking at that, and that's like the mock draft heavy take right now is
Mm-hmm.
Jackson Dart there. But like I'm might be misremembering the stat, but I think George Pickens is like their only wide receiver on the roster right now, or the only receiver like worth the damn. And
Yeah,
like, so we're
yeah.
talking about infrastructure. Like, can you throw Jackson Dart into that? Like,
Oh my
in
god.
like, good lord, that sounds horrible.
Well,
Um,
the Steelers seem like a team that really needed to blow it up, and I know that there was some
right.
talk about firing Mike Tomlin, but this going 9-8 every season and like competing for a playoff spot the last week of the season, you're not helping anything. Like
Mm-mm.
you're wasting TJ Watt's career. The fan base is like actually unhappy, even though they're winning games, because it's like we don't want to play boring football. We got like
Mm-hmm.
the Ravens and Bengals in this division, and we can't score points, right? Like they're going to have to figure something out. But I think they're a ways from that. Like the Steelers are like I think a dark horse, like bottom 5 team next year.
Yeah, I mean, I like once again, I don't know if that defense has really changed much or what's going to happen, but like until
Mm-hmm.
that, I just think that defense is going to keep winning them games, and they're going to keep
They'll
staying
stay in games, yeah,
lukewarm, you know. And
yeah.
it's like, okay, we're
As
going to
long as
rinse and
Tomlin's
repeat.
there, yeah,
But that division's too good right now, you know. Like the Bengals and Ravens are just too good. Like,
yeah. What do the Browns do now? Because no
yeah,
Deshaun, right? Like,
yeah,
is Chavis going to
yeah.
start week 1?
I mean,
He could,
that seems like maybe a Russell Wilson landing spot, something like
yeah.
that, just to right the ship a little bit, something consistent. Obviously, Pete Carroll's the Raiders head coach, so Russ makes a lot of sense there. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't like and Gino, like what's is I mean he like is he full go for next year? Like
Ugh.
what are we doing there? Like it makes no sense.
Well, right.
Genuinely.
No, and a lot of these teams are going to have to bring competition in. Like, regardless of how you feel about it, the Seahawks can't have Sam Howell back there behind Geno.
No.
Like, we're close to the end of the road with Geno. He really tailed off. I mean, you can make the argument Geno was the reason that team missed the playoffs. That team was too good to be at 7-10 or whatever they went. Too
Yeah,
much
and they have
talent.
talent
So
around him too,
yeah,
which is really like
yeah, it's just disappointing. I mean, it's really disappointing to me. But yeah, I'm excited to see where a lot of these guys go. And I like Jackson Dart. I'm kind of, I guess, even with the market on him. Like if the NFL tells me he's a first round pick, I'll buy it, right? Like that was the Bo Nix thing. It's like if the NFL thinks he's worthy of top
Yeah,
10 pick or whatever, where he was 15 or something, I'm in.
12 or 11. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I don't like Quinn Ewers. I don't like Jalen Milrow. However,
no,
I do think Jalen Milrow is going to be a top 45 pick in the NFL draft. Like I will go on record saying it. He's going to go top 45. I think the
yeah.
sneaky spot for him is to go to the Dolphins because they got to figure out what's behind Tua. If Tua gets hurt, can we just do the full Wildcat speed all over the field, Milrow
That'd be
running the
fun.
Dolphins, and he's going to score fantasy points.
Yeah, if he does
Like
that,
he
yeah,
will, even if he can't complete
yeah,
6 forward passes.
yeah. And I think like Jacksonville is another great example here. Trevor Lawrence, like what are I mean,
Yeah.
he just seems fragile and he seems up and down. And I just obviously they just invested $250 million into him, so like it's probably not going to be anything anytime soon. But it's just there's questions everywhere, and it's kind of interesting. Like just the Panthers seem consistent at the quarterback position, which seems kind of wild to me.
So let me ask you, when it comes to like draft quarterback rankings and everything, where are you at on your top five or your order of those guys we've kind of mentioned?
Yeah,
And just talk me through. Is there anybody you like more than maybe consensus or anything like that?
I'm like I feel essentially I don't think I would touch any of these quarterbacks with it, like especially those top five.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I just say pass. Like that's kind of where I'm at on all of them. I think if Jackson Dart falls to like middle of this, like in the 40s, take him, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
like, oh man, I just he just seemed like one progression guy who I saw crumble in some big moments. Um, he's still young and like the arm talent is like clearly there. He's got the size and is somewhat mobile. But man, and then those top two guys, I couldn't be further out on. There's just the pressure. Like, if your team sucks, just build the roster up. Like this year, like
Yeah.
if I could talk to any GM, Giants, Browns, I guess maybe if you're the Raiders and one of those two guys falls, like it makes sense. At
Their
what are they,
infrastructure is a
seven?
little bit better, which is
Yeah,
surprising to say, but the
yeah.
supporting cast is actually a little bit better in Vegas than a lot of these spots.
hmm I would not touch a quarterback. I would take Cam Ward at 7. Like that's what I would do. That makes sense to me. And then I don't have the list pulled up in front of me, but Shadur at 22, that makes sense to me. Where it's almost like Pickett level
Yeah.
of what they're doing. You know?
Yeah, and I think like I know we don't really talk defense here a lot, but Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are probably the two best players in the draft.
Yeah.
Um, Abdul Carter's like barely played any defensive end and just lit the college football playoff on final and or on fire. He's a special pass rusher, like literally height size school as Micah Parsons, basically
hmm
carbon copy. Um, I think he could go number one, and I was looking at the DraftKings odds on
I think
this.
he will. I really do.
So Cam Ward right now is minus 140 to go first overall, but Abdul Carter is only plus 200. There's a lot of steam that the Titans could just say, you
I
know
might bet
what?
that right now. Honestly.
Yeah. And Travis Hunter, I think, is plus 250, I want to say. So it's like, it's either going to be Cam Ward or it's going to be a defensive guy, is what it
Yeah.
sounds like to me. Um, if the Titans want to go quarterback, I guess I can't blame them. How often do you have the number one pick and your choice of whoever? But you have a chance to get like a Hall of Fame defensive end or a Hall of Fame corner. I mean, we'll see how good those guys turn out being, but um,
Yeah.
I think the answer is pretty clear. Like, let's actually fix that defense a little bit. The AFC South is not that special a division. I mean, the Texans are a playoff team right now, but they're so far from competing for an actual championship. So
So yeah,
if you're the
totally agree.
Titans, like try to fix the team a little bit, and then we'll get our quarterback.
hmm hmm that roster is so bad. Like, don't you like? Obviously, hindsight's 2020, but you throw Caleb Williams into that, or you throw Jaden Daniels into that. Like going into it, you feel more confident, right? Like that's okay. These guys aren't that. They're just not. And I wasn't high on Jaden Daniels this time last year, but like, um, I genuinely don't think those are the guys. And I've been on record about the Panthers over and over again. Like, I want Bryce Young to succeed, but I still think they took him a year too early and or 2 years too early, right? So
Yeah.
it's build
Right.
the roster up.
In the
Don't set these
Bryce
guys up to fail.
in the Bryce Young experience is what should tell these GMs like it's okay to wait. Like that he was
Mm-hmm.
drafted into a horrible situation. He wasn't ready to start. It doesn't matter if you think he's the most talented guy in the draft. Like nobody's going to succeed in that unless they're a literal Hall of Fame quarterback. And you can't ask a 21-year-old to carry a team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other thing too is Jane Daniels turned 24 during the season. This is a guy who started 70 college football games. I mean, he at least played enough football to like
I guess
not
that's
lose
Cam
his head
Ward,
out
you
there.
know. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah. The one thing I'll say, and I'll throw out this Shadur stat, so do with this what you want.
yeah.
He had the highest ever completion percentage season from a clean pocket. So if he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't pressured, he's like the most accurate college QB we've ever seen. Um, I have I have no doubts that Shadur is as accurate as you'll ever see coming into the NFL. But this guy is like the worst under pressure that you've studied in a long time too. So
Yeah.
if you're great when it's clean and you're not good when it's dirty, what happens if you go to a team like the Titans who are a terrible team and can't block?
Crumble.
Um, right, and you play in that AFC South, right? Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, Jags. Texans have
We've
Will
seen
Anderson, Daniel
guys
Hunter.
after guys now who start seeing ghosts, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it literally ruined the first 5 years of Sam Darnold's career because he just never
Mm-hmm.
had protection. Like if you're going to get hit in 2 seconds, you have to make decisions. Then it's like I can't throw dump offs the whole game. You start forcing it. Like it's just going to keep getting worse. And I'm really worried that Shadur is going to have a ton of talent, and you're going to see flash plays from him. He's going to have nice throws and like he'll throw some big touchdowns and stuff, but he's going to have a lot of these game losing plays, I think, almost how Jameis
Mm-hmm.
does in a sense, where it's like everything could be going right. And then that one play happens, it's just a disaster, and then your team loses.
Yeah.
I'm worried about him. I really am. I'm not as worried about Cam Ward. I like Cam Ward. I think he's going to be a solid NFL starter. I think in more of fantasy terms, he's more of a QB2 kind of guy. He's not
Mm-hmm.
like a light the world on fire accurate passer. He's a little erratic at times. He's a mobile guy, but really only at the goal line. He had, I think it was 7 rushing TDs at Miami last year, but they were all like within 5 yard runs. He's not like a scramble and go get you 45 a game. Even Bo Nix ran more than he did in college, but um, Cam started a lot of football games. I think if he goes to the Giants, it's like perfect because at least you have like some go-to targets
Agreed.
and an offense
Totally
around you.
agree.
But um, both of those guys, I'm just kind of like I guess I'm like I have to like wait and see with them. Dart, I like. I would love for him to wait a full season. I would love for him to go somewhere he could sit and just like I don't know if Aaron Rodgers ends up on the Raiders or something. Could Jackson Dart go to the Raiders and then just sit for 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
don't play a snap of football, and then be ready the next year? I'd
I
love to
love
see
that.
that. I'd
That's
love to see
awesome.
that.
Yes,
Yeah.
me too. I
Um,
think that would be awesome. But does that mean Dart at 7? Like what? Like, oh
well, I mean, they
man,
could
that
trade
feels
back
like
maybe.
so aggressive.
I
I
don't
get,
know.
yeah.
Well, so
Um,
as far as the actual draft goes, I mean, the big domino that has to fall in that top 10 is where does Tet go? And I know we haven't talked about receivers yet, but Tet's going to go
yeah.
top 10. He's the best receiver, like
You know,
bar
it's
none.
interesting. I was looking at this today, and like I saw a couple mock drafts with him falling to the teens, which
I've
I
seen
thought
it
was really
too.
interesting.
I've seen it too. Uh,
But I disagree. Like I saw one today where he is getting drafted to the Bucks, and I was like, that just is like, okay, one,
it's lazy.
it's too good to be true, and it's lazy. Yeah,
It's
it's just
lazy.
not
Oh, the
going to
Mike
happen.
Evans comp. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah. And I think Tet's going to go as high as 4. I think the
Yeah.
Patriots could take him at 4. They need a weapon. Drake May would love to have that number 1 guy. You pair up the 2 young guys, let them develop together. At least the Patriots be exciting for the first time since I don't know Brady years.
Hmm.
Um, I'd love to see that, but where Tet goes will determine the rest of that top 10 because It wouldn't shock me if the Raiders took a receiver either at 7 or traded
Yeah,
down. And if somebody wants to come
yeah.
and get Tet who needs a receiver or something like that, they could come get him if he's still there at 7. Does Milrow or anybody rise during the combine process? I don't think Jalen Miller is going to go top 10. I would. That's like the worst pick I've ever seen. That's like Christian Ponder level.
Truly,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Um, but if he goes out there and runs a 4.3940 and interviews well, and you see it's like, oh well, this guy won a lot of big games and he's an early declare. Like I know how this stuff goes. Somebody always rises.
yeah. I I don't think it's going to be him. I think the narrative is kind of already set in stone with him.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly that like Senior Bowl game or what it was the Shrine Bowl. What is that?
Yeah, no, the Senior Bowl. Yeah,
Yeah, the Senior Bowl. He looked like the worst player there. Like that's what everyone said,
he's
right?
he's not a quarterback.
He's not a quarterback,
Yeah,
right? Like if you're
because
going to
people.
do something fancy with them, do it. But yeah,
Yeah, that's the knock Lamar got. But Lamar threw for. I mean, Lamar as a passer
yeah.
compared to where Milrow was as a passer is like night and day, anyways. And it's like it's not even the same conversation. Like,
Lamar was a Heisman winner.
yeah,
Maybe the better comp is probably Jalen Hurts, right? Like, but because
he's
that was his knock, right? He's not the best passer. He's just a freak athlete who can play the position.
yeah. I would say he's
So
like a 6'1" Anthony Richardson who is has a weaker arm. Like,
can he make better decisions? And is he more accurate? I don't, like,
I mean, I don't think so.
yeah.
I just wasn't impressed by him. I thought the Alabama team was actually really good last year, and Milrow held them back,
Hmm.
which is really weird to see from an Alabama quarterback. But uh, yeah,
I think, opening this conversation up a little bit, like, I think all of these guys, and this might be lazy, but like all these guys have talent. Like I think Milrow, like if given time, given a couple years to sit, and given
yeah,
um, the opportunity and the fit and the environment, like I think something could happen. I think he's that talented, but
he's a special athlete. He
he's
is.
a special athlete. But I don't think he's going to be a guy that's like, okay, go win us games this year. That's going to be a mistake. I honestly don't think any of these guys are, except for maybe Cam Ward. And I think all of the teams that draft them expecting or hoping that is going to kind of mess up, because that completion percentage, the shitter stuff is just like, it's scary, because you look at like what makes the best quarterbacks, and it's the ability to improvise and deal when things get tough and the
Mhm.
pocket breaks down. Like Mahomes is the best example of this. Like he's not a freak athlete, but he knows how to work magic in the pocket. You would
I,
want Shadur to do that because he's not
yeah,
the best athlete, but he just doesn't, or
he's
he
not.
hasn't proven that to us yet.
He's not a willing runner at all. Like
No.
I don't think he's a great athlete, but he actually might be better than I think he is. He just never shows it ever. I mean,
Hmm.
if you just look at it like
Maybe that's him wanting to be a pretty boy and like playing in college. That's the style he has, I
yeah,
guess. But I don't know.
yeah, and everybody's like top 3 quarterbacks are probably Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar, or whatever order you feel is best in that 3. That's probably everyone's top 3. All 3 of those guys are impossible to tackle in the pocket. They all can make
Yeah.
people miss. They always like are able to get the throw off. And you got 2 guys coming in who take a lot of sacks and are not good under pressure. Um,
Hmm.
so if you want to take them top 5, if you don't have the infrastructure, I just think it's setting up for a disaster. And man, I just don't know if we see both these guys go top 10 when it's all said and done. I really don't.
Yeah, I want to go back and look at. Maybe I should have done this before this podcast, but like what was the energy? Because I remember being shocked the Pickett year. Like,
Yeah.
why are these guys falling? Like, this is. I mean, we all kind of knew they sucked, but like the fall was. What was it? He was pick 18, something like that, and then the next one
I
was in
want
the
to say
70s.
no. I want to say Pickett was like 2022.
Okay, 22 sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then what? It was like second or when we waited a
Uh,
while that night,
yeah.
or that draft, for more guys to follow, because that was like the Matt Corral year, and
Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah. I can't remember.
I think these three guys are better than like Pickett and that, but like I think they should be drafted around the same range. But obviously, it's a quarterback needy league, and that's just not going to happen.
Yeah. the thing with Kenny Pickett was like everybody consensus believed that there's just not a very good quarterback in this class, and Kenny Pickett in a lot of years is more QB4, QB5.
Yeah.
But because of just the neediness of the NFL in general, and yeah, he's probably the best guy. I mean, it gets pushed up the board, but everyone's expecting, well, he's a top quarterback. Why isn't he going higher? It's like he's not that good. You know, he got a
Yeah.
shot with the
Do you
Steelers, didn't work.
do you have a guy outside of these top five that you kind of find interesting?
Um, I think Dylan Gabriel can play, and I
Yeah.
don't think he'll ever get a shot, like a real shot. But
Yeah.
again, I'm a sucker for a guy who can put up a ton of yards and is going to start a million games in college. Because if Bo Nix taught me anything, its experience does matter at the position.
Hmm.
It's where Bo Nix was as a starter coming into the NFL versus where Anthony Richardson was as a starter. Just the experience of this is the big kind of the gap. Bo Nix does not have Anthony Richardson's talent, but he's just way more ready to go. Like he just has seen
Hmm.
more defenses, more coverages, played against a lot of good teams, and experience matters. So I think Dylan Gabriel is going to be probably a fifth, sixth rounder. Somebody's going to take a shot on him,
Yeah.
and a team like the Lions, right? Like they drafted Hendon Hooker. I haven't seen or heard anything about
Not a
Hendon
word.
Hooker since.
No. No. Not a word.
If Goff
Not a
gets
word at
hurt,
all.
what happens? They need a backup. A lot of teams need backups, right? Like, do the Texans want Davis Mills again? Do whoever's behind Tua, like I mentioned earlier. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of the comp of how the throwing
This feels
motion
like a
is.
very good backup quarterback year, right?
Yeah, and the other name I'll throw out is Tyler Shuck,
Okay.
who
Yeah.
is the Louisville quarterback. Is that my mic? Oh,
Is it mine?
I don't know. I was hitting the static in the ear, but good
Oh,
now.
sorry. Cool.
Oh, I think it's yours.
Is it still going?
Yeah, all good.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Is it good?
yeah, it's good now.
Cool.
Um, Tyler Shuck is the other name I'm going to throw out here. The Louisville quarterback. He played at Texas Tech. If you like Brandon Whedon, you'll like Tyler Shuck. He is
Oh wow.
26 years old. Will turn 27 during the year. Um, I don't know the full story. I didn't really bother to look into it. He impressed a lot of people at the Senior Bowl, and I saw a NFL guy tweet a couple of days ago that he thinks he could be a day two selection after how good he's looked. Um,
Wow.
6'5", mobile, big arm, yada yada. Again, I don't like taking a 26-year-old quarterback and try to develop him, especially if I know he's not going to start as a rookie. That just seems pretty bad.
Hmm.
Um, if he does go high, I don't know. I could be convinced if he's got an opportunity to play, and then these backup quarterback guys are actually going to be very valuable in dynasty, right? Like this is now something that's like, hey, do I want to trade for a guy who might not play initially? Sit him on my bench. Do I want whoever's behind my top quarterback? Like I don't know. Like the Broncos want Jared Stidham behind Bo Nix. So they go draft like a Dylan Gabriel or something to go sit behind him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, um,
I think like those guys especially become so much more valuable. Like they're gonna fill up the third and fourth round of our draft.
oh yeah, yeah. Every quarterback drafted should be drafted in a rookie draft. Every
Hmm.
single quarterback who gets drafted.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, I think it's interesting. And once again, this is a name I don't know too much about. Like, but I think we're like what maybe a year and some change removed from like Riley Leonard being a top 10 pick,
mhm.
right? Um,
Yep.
once again, like I just would rather take him in the fifth than one of these guys, top 10. I don't know. Like, not saying that Riley Leonard's going to be the savior of your team or anything like that, but like, there's some pedigree there that interests me.
Yeah, is the
I
gap
don't know.
between a Dillian Gabriel, who I understand is 24 years old,
Yeah.
and Cam Ward, is that really 200 players in real life, like in the real draft? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
And then all the Kyle McCord talk was interesting too out of that
Yeah.
Senior Bowl. And
Yeah.
people loved him, said he looked really good. So he just screams like good backup quarterback to me, but
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
you know.
Kyle McCord is going to make an NFL roster. That's a
Yeah,
guy who really improved, right? Like the whole talk of that Ohio State Marvin Harrison team was like, oh, Kyle McCord's terrible. They're forcing him
yeah.
out. He transfers out. Well, he was great for Syracuse. They won 9 games.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And it once again, I mean, I guess we're gonna. This is like now it's just a fully quarterback draft
Yeah.
or podcast, which is fine. We've got more podcasts in the future coming, but uh, Will Howard, like I guess we're naming every quarterback, right? But like Will Howard,
I'm
like
very out on Will
can
Howard.
he? I mean, I know, but like, God, man, he looked good. Like maybe it's total recency bias here, but it seems like just a switch was flipped for him, and
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to carry this into the NFL. I don't think that's how it works, but I don't know. I don't know.
No, anybody who gets a shot at the end of this draft, it always can happen. I think you're going to see the big transition between a lot of these guys who've been backups for years in the NFL and then some of the new
Yeah,
guys coming in. Um, Even if we don't think the top of the quarterback class isn't great, it still means that a lot of these fourth, fifth, sixth round guys still might get opportunities even this year to start. Um, and the other guy I'll throw out is Curtis Rourke, who's the
yeah,
Indiana quarterback.
yeah.
Um, Now, I don't know if he'll ever be. I don't know if he even be drafted, but still somebody to at least keep on your radar. Guy won a lot of games in college, won a lot of games for the
Hmm.
Ohio team before he transferred to Indiana as well.
Well, that's how I feel like a lot of these guys are. Just like there's quite a few really successful college quarterbacks in this draft, and then the crew leading the pack really isn't that. It's I mean, obviously Shadur they had a good year, and Miami had a pretty
Mhm.
solid year, and so did Ole Miss. But like, I don't know, like Riley Leonard, Will Howard, Dylan Gabriel, those guys that had like the really good years on their teams, they're just all lingering, 200 to 250 picks behind, right?
Yeah, yeah, and the thing that's worth like keeping in mind too is the 2026 draft is going to have a lot of very good quarterbacks in it
Yeah.
as well, and
Just
27
wait,
for that
just wait,
matter.
just wait.
Um, the turnover is coming. A lot of these Derek Carrs and Rodgers and
Hmm.
Matt Staffords and Kirk Cousins are all going to be forced out of the league like very soon. Um,
Yeah. That's a name we haven't mentioned yet. And that's actually, the name escaped me earlier, but like, where's he going to play? Is he done? What's going to happen? So
that's what I mean, and that's why I think a lot of these teams are going to bring in competition, right? Like I said, the Colts earlier, but
Kirk in Cleveland makes a lot of sense.
Kirk and Cleveland does make some sense. I mean, they have weapons,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? They
They
got to
do.
score points to win games in that division, so I
Yeah.
think that makes sense. Um,
I think if you're ready to end the conversation about quarterbacks, can we spend the last few minutes just talking about like some random throw out players already in the league, not draft,
yeah,
but like who we're interested in?
yeah. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
Okay, okay. Obviously, I'm just going to throw out a couple names, and I'm just getting your. I want to hear your feedback here.
Mhm.
But like, we'll stay in Cleveland. But like, Jerry Judy is a name that like is so interesting to me. Like, what it like? What do you think happens in 2025 for him?
Well, um, he
He's only
had
25 years old too. Like,
yeah,
it's insane. I thought that was the craziest thing I saw today.
yeah. I think with Jerry Judy, he had a 3 game stretch where he was probably the best, at least fantasy receiver, towards the end of this year, and
Hmm.
outside of that really 3 game stretch, his entire career has basically been a big disappointment. Um,
Hmm.
the big thing for him is who plays quarterback and how do the Browns want to play, right? So Nick Chubb's going to have a full offseason. Jerome Ford's going to be healthy. Njoku actually healthy and played great last year too. Um, I still think the Browns need more weapons and everything, and then Miles Garrett's forcing his way out, so we'll see what happens
Hmm.
there. Um, but he's kind of locked into a role. Now, does that lead to 1,000 yards? Does it lead to 1,300 yards? I like him. I just don't. I think I'm kind of like in line with the market on Judy. Uh, I was never the biggest believer in him to begin with, but yeah, I mean, still a 25-year-old guy. Maybe it took him some time to figure it out. I mean, that's the same thing that happened with Nico Collins, right? Like, took him
Hmm.
3 years to get anything going, and then all of a sudden he's dominant. So I'll
Yeah,
give Judy a
I,
chance
I
still,
think
but
just like um, like using the analogy, if it's like seeing a color for the first time. Now that you've seen the color orange, you know it exists, you know what it looks like.
Mhm.
You can't unsee it, right? Now that he's proven he can be like a top guy, I just think that confidence is going to be there, and I don't know if he'll be able to unsee that. And if you put a Kirk Cousins in Cleveland, like I really think he's a guy that could be like a top 10 receiver, like have a season like that.
I think Kirk would be fun because Judy and Joku, and then whoever they want that third guy to be, whether it's a rookie or something else, like it's
Yeah,
fun. A healthy Nick Chubb,
totally.
who's still probably got a little bit of juice left.
Yeah,
It's
agreed.
fun.
Um, okay, I think Khalil Shakur is another name that like keeps standing out to me. I don't know what he finished this year. I can look at it really quick. Um, but I was going through it and I thought he was really interesting. Did you see his last 3 games of the year
It's all
by
really good,
chance?
wasn't it? Didn't he
No,
score?
no, no. It was
Or
not good at all.
are you talking like playoff games too and everything, or regular
Um,
season?
Let me see here. Where's he at? Not good podcasting.
No, you're good. My take with Shakir is I think he's a candidate to get replaced. He's actually a guy I had written down on my notes as well. Of like, I definitely could see the Bills wanting to upgrade that spot. Uh, I think he's okay.
Yeah.
I think he's an NFL player. I just don't think he's a difference maker. And I think that for what the Bills want to do and how they want to play offense, I think that that role is so important to them, like the role that he plays. And
Mm-hmm.
if they could upgrade that at all, I think that that could be a huge win. I mean, this guy, look, he was a fourth round pick out of Boise State, who's kind of a slot merchant, small. He's not really strong after the catch. He's got good hands. I'll give that to him, but I just don't think he's a difference maker. And yeah, that could be a spot they want to improve.
So I I'll disagree with you there because I think they I don't know. You look at that roster and you're like, dude, these weapons around Josh Allen aren't great. But if you look at the draft capital they've spent over the last 3 seasons on those positions and not
Yeah.
necessarily missed, like Keon Coleman is still like has a lot to prove and could be really good, right? But like um, Kincaid has really struggled,
Mm-hmm.
who was a late first round guy. And then, I think they're like, once again, they might try and add another weapon around Josh Allen, but like, if you go back to this year, like, was he the problem? Was the weapons and Josh Allen the problem? Probably not, right? So like, I feel like they might go, I don't know, defense with the blue chip guys, right? Or maybe
Mm-hmm.
they add someone in free agency. I don't know, but I feel like Khalil's going to be like kind of a guy, and he reminded me, his stat lines reminded me. Obviously, this is kind of a wild take, but like of Stephon Diggs, where it's really interesting. The last 3 games of the season, um, Khalil Shakur, he was wide receiver 35 last year, but the last 3 games he combined for 9 total points.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, and we're talking with games in there of 16, 22, 15, you know, a
Yeah.
couple 12, 11 games, 21, 13, 19. He's capable of some big games. And I think like another year as a starter, he's only 25 years old. I think he kind of takes a step forward this year.
He
I think
could.
it'll be interesting. So, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, I think it's really rare that you see guys have games or stretches like that where they're essentially
Yeah.
just not even needed. Um, I know with how the Bills play offense, it's just everybody kind of gets involved. James Cook obviously scored a million touchdowns this year. Josh at the goal line too.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for those guys to really get the fantasy points at receiver. Um, and Keon's going to be that boundary receiver. So whatever the Bills figure out over the middle of the field, I think is like a huge area of need for them in the offseason. Just can we improve that slightly, get something else going there? I think Amari Cooper's kind of done based on what I saw.
Yeah.
Um, but if Khalil Shakir, if the Bills don't draft or trade for anybody or offseason free agency, whatever, if he's locked in as the starter next year, I'm 100% with you. I think I'm just more skeptical that that's the case.
Uh huh. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it'll look a little different. It kind of has year after year in Buffalo, but it'll be interesting. And I really just thought the connection between Diggs, his late season implosions, and Shakir's implosion was also like of note
Yeah,
because I think those guys, like, I guess for some reason the Bills just like are in games whether they're not needing to throw the ball that much, their position in the playoffs is secure. Like for whatever reason, these guys are just like totally unreliable.
Yeah.
late in the season. So, but he could be great the first 10 weeks. So I don't know. Um, I think my last point I wanted to bring up is just like what's going to happen in Kansas City, and kind of hearing. I wanted to hear your thoughts about that.
It, as far as like what happens in Kansas City when it comes to what, like just
Well,
overall team, retiring and everything, like Kelsey and everything, or
I guess I'll set the prompt of okay, if Mahomes is in the same breath as Tom Brady, right?
Mhm.
Like what made Tom Brady great was um, kind of like era after era, he was able to continue to do it with different guys, right? And I feel like we're ending phase one, or maybe this is like phase one or two of Mahomes' career,
Yeah,
right? Where those guys are aging out. And I think we're, because God, man, that receiving core is like big names, but they feel like they're dead. You know,
yeah,
like
it's
there's
brutal.
so many guys. It's a corpse. It's a morgue on that roster at the skill positions. So I think it's just going to be interesting to see like if I could have, shout out to Cap, I guess, but like Xavier Worthy is a guy to me who proved it obviously in the Super Bowl, but like he just totally seems like the guy moving forward in Kansas City.
Yep.
And like I think he's going to be, unbelievable next year.
Well, and I'll throw this out while you're on the point. Rasheed Rice is going to have that 4 game suspension baked in next
Mm-hmm.
year, plus this injury recovery from like that massive knee reconstruction. I think it might be. I think like Rasheed Rice is battling uphill to play like 6 games next year. Like genuinely,
Yeah.
I think he is.
Yeah.
And
And if he has a character concern too, we got to throw that back into it as well, right?
he was already an older prospect. It's like you're going to look up and it's like, okay, well, what do we do with 26-year-old Rasheed Rice? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I
Yeah.
think Kelsey's going to play one more year. I think.
Okay.
Um, I my take is that if they won, I think it was his last game. I think that would have
Mm-hmm.
been it. Go out on the three-peat, go propose to Taylor, all that good stuff. But I think that because they lost in the way that they lost, just getting just demolished. Um,
Crush. Yeah.
I think he wants to give it one more go. Maybe just have that one season where it's like I'm giving it everything I got, and we'll see where it takes us. I think that they're going to struggle as a team a little bit more next year. They have to pay so many people on defense.
Yep.
Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie are going to be top, I don't know, 3 paid position players at their positions on
Karlaftis is a
defense.
free agent.
Oh my God. Like, and he's just a
Yeah.
game wrecker himself too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Trey Smith, O line, he's probably a top what 5 guard
yep.
free agent.
Creed Humphrey, I think, is due some money too.
Yeah.
They just got a lot of stuff to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
Pacheco fell off the earth to me. He was kind of on my faller's list of like,
Yeah.
went from, wow, he could be like, I don't know, a top 8 fantasy running back to this guy can't beat out Kareem Hunt. Had
Yeah. What
we
are
had
we
3 weeks
doing?
to prepare for the Super Bowl and he can't get like 5 carries. Um, I don't know what to do with him. Did the Chiefs bring in somebody, one of these rookies? Like, did the Chiefs go and draft a rookie? um,
Yeah, I mean, they might. Like they just drafted Xavier Worthy. I always think it's weird. Maybe it's a mental block I have in my head, but kind of what I was mentioning with the Bills, like, are they going to draft receiver after receiver after receiver and hope, especially because they've spent a lot of capital on that. Xavier
yeah,
Worthy and Rasheed Rice were both like what top
top 40
four,
picks.
top
Yeah.
40 picks. Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting. Another point I wanted to think about is if Kelsey does step away, like, is Noah Gray the guy? And
Whew.
like, but what's interesting? He was tight end 22 this year.
Yeah. He scored a bunch of touchdowns.
Scored a bunch of touchdowns, right? Like, so I, it's just interesting. I don't know what they're going to do because if Noah Gray is the guy, like he immediately becomes a top 10 tight end, right? Like overnight, and Kelsey could step away tomorrow.
If the Chiefs go and draft Harold Fannin with the last pick in the
Okay,
second round
yeah,
and Kelsey retires, I will trade up from the 5th pick to take Harold Fannin.
hmm
Like,
but doesn't this make more sense? Like, I feel like it's time for a shakeup in Kansas City where Kelsey's done and like these old like the Hopkinses and the Kareem Hunts are off the table. Like they're just um,
yeah, I
it's
think,
time and they're
yeah,
wasting like what is Kelsey getting paid this year? Like
20 something, I think.
Oh my God, he's just. I mean, he's tight end five, but he's just not worth it. He's just not the guy he used to be.
No.
So I don't. Obviously, I don't think they're gonna like. I don't know. Like, will they have the guts to be like, you dude? It's time. Like, take you out to pasture. We enjoyed you, but
Yeah.
I think they'd be better off for it.
Yeah, I definitely think that these guys are going to give it one more year, and I think that they're due for like that embarrassing, not embarrassing, but like a 10-7. They make the wild card or something, lose first round for the first time ever,
Yeah.
and then it's like, okay, we got to really switch this up. I think they're stubborn enough to keep this going though. It worked, got them there.
I think this is what's really going to separate them if they want to be like a big dynasty here, like Patriots level dynasty. It's like, how willing and ruthless are they going to be? Right. And I
Mhm.
think this offseason for them is really interesting because they could be ruthless and it could help them so much, like as they continue to progress.
Yeah.
And if they don't, they stay sentimental and keep these guys around a little too long. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. So, but I think my main point in talking about guys that I view as risers, I think Xavier Worthy's a wide receiver one this year, just because there's so many questions on that team, and he just seems like the most consistent playmaker. They love to be creative. He just seems like the perfect fit.
Well, I did and this will be my last point, and we can hop off
Yeah.
here. I did a best ball draft 2 days ago while I was sitting at work. The big board is out, and if you're not familiar with best ball and underdog, they released the big board the week after the Super Bowl. Includes all the rookies. So you can draft your best ball team all the way to the next Super Bowl. Has the rookies in there. You got to figure out ADP, draft position, all that. It's kind of like a fun game. Like, I don't know. Do you think Ricky White, the UNLV receiver, is going to be a fourth round pick? Should I be taking him in the 18th round? Or like, I don't know. But um, Xavier Worthy is like, I think he was 14th
You
pick.
broke up on me. Bryce?
Is this thing okay? Hello, hello.
The last thing I heard was the UNLV receiver.
Oh, yeah. So you can kind of like play the game in there and figure out like you take a bunch of rookies, draft your best ball teams, and just have fun doing it. It's nice seeing some different names. Um, but Xavier Worthy, I want to say went 14th overall in my
Mm-hmm.
draft, uh,
Makes so much sense to me.
like ahead of
Yeah.
Lad, and it's like I get it.
Yeah.
I get it though. Like
Yeah.
I mean, look, I don't think the competition's there. I think it's wheels up for him because they showed down in the playoff stretch like how good he could be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I get it. I mean,
And I do think, yeah,
Brian Thomas, I think was the 10th overall pick. He's like a first round pick in redraft this year.
yeah.
It's crazy.
I think Brian Thomas is a better player, but the
Oh
situation
yeah,
in Kansas City for Xavier Worthy is
oh
just
yeah,
like unbelievable. So, and
yeah.
I
I don't.
also think the Chargers are going to bring in. I think they'll bring in a receiver this year.
They're drafting a running back 100%
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah. So they're going to draft playmakers. Lad like is awesome. Do you think he's hit his ceiling though? Like, is he going to keep getting better? I don't know. I don't know.
He was forced the ball in the second half of the season,
Forced. Yeah.
and I don't know if it really translated to them winning games against the Texans in the playoffs. The Texans basically said, "Okay, throw it to somebody other than Ladd," and Justin
Mm-hmm.
couldn't do it. So,
Yeah.
um,
They have to figure that out,
and
and I
they're
think
going
that's only
to,
going to hurt him.
but
Yeah.
I think like that's a good news for the Chargers is like we at least know what we got to fix.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. We've been going on this for a while.
Yeah.
Tell you what, let's end this here,
Yeah.
and next time we get together, let's talk running backs and receivers
Mm-hmm.
for the upcoming draft, and we'll see where it takes us. Want to talk some Panthers with you too? We'll see where we're at.
This
Um,
episode was brought to you by Bubbly.
Thank you, Bubbly. Please send us merch.
Yeah,
That'd be
that could be
great.
good.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. If you made it all the way here, please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me something you'd like to see us talk about next, and please leave your quarterback thoughts and takes in the comments below. But I appreciate you.
Wait. Final question.
Yes, sir.
Who are going to be the two worst teams in grit next year? You have to think about that.
Zach and Xander.
Okay. Each week we'll do the next two.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Could
Perfect.
be good.
All right.
Zach and Xander, sorry, buddy. Or it's Xander and Zach probably, but yeah.
We'll see. I don't know. We'll
Xander
see.
needs that. Xander needs 1-1.
He
All right,
does.
cool.
All right. Well, I will see you next time, brother.
See ya.